This is Real Women, celebrating women in film. I'm your host, Brenda Daly. I wanted to remind you all to make sure you subscribe so we can continue to make this fantastic content. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Rusty Meyers. He is very well known in Las Vegas, and he has done movies like Silverado, Vegas Vacation. He's an actor, he is a casting director, and he is a personal acting coach. So I would really like you to really embrace him, and I want you to say hello to Rusty Meyers. Hi, Rusty.
It's actually going pretty well.
Wow, you look good.
Hey, that was a long time ago. I think I was 19.
Oh, wow.
This is what was used back in the 70s. And when I moved to California, and they called that a composite. And,
yeah, I know things are a lot different. I actually I'm almost done with my course. My course materials were the business of acting. So
right.
The course materials were it took me 11 months to get everything up to speed where all the casting. So it's a lot of work. I know composites and everything were definitely in the 70s, but things are just so different and everything's digital.
Yeah. I started out when I was about 12 years old doing stage and back in Michigan. And we would it was a fairly large high school, and I ended up doing quite a few shows there. And in my junior year of high school, my folks moved to Arizona. And so I kind of had to go with them. And so I went to a smaller school that didn't do as many shows, but continued doing theater, plays and musicals, and then got to the point where I thought, you know what, maybe this is something that I can do. And because I was fooling people, I mean, students and teachers, and they're going, that's not who you were. And I go into class, I go, yeah, it was. Here's the program to prove it. And so I decided maybe this is something that I should do. And I was fortunate enough to get contacted by several professors in universities and colleges around the country, and got paid to go to college for theater. And so I took classes, 2-3 classes a day, 5 days a week for 6 years. And my first professional show, I was 18. And this was in Cripple Creek, Colorado. We did 2 shows a day, 6 days a week, 150 shows.
What was the show?
It was called The Ticket of Leave Man.
Okay.
It's right up there. If I'm pointing right at the top. Anyway, and I ended up working with, people quite a bit older than I, and I got paid. Granted, it was only $85 a week plus room and board, but I would have done it for nothing.
Right.
Because the learning experience was so much more than what I had learned all through high school and all through college. I went back to college that next year after the summer, and I was basically, guys, you don't know what you're missing. This is not real theater. What I just did is the real deal. And so I was fortunate enough to actually teach some classes in college. And then after I graduated in 77, I moved. I said, I'm moving to LA. And because it's not like I wanted to give up theater, but I wanted to try and find out what this whole film and TV world was about. So I moved there on my own, never having. I had been to California one time with a choir back in high school, and we did a show there or something. So, but that was as much as information that I knew about California. Where do you go?
Let me ask you something. Just
you go to
head
Hollywood.
Back a little bit. As a kid, so what interests you in actually getting on stage in the first place?
Well, my brothers and sisters, the only thing that we had, because I went to a Catholic grade school, there was only choir. We didn't really do plays. I played some sports, but once we got out of, our whole family went to the school, and once we got out of the Holy Family was the name of it, we went to Grand Blanc High School, and that was a regular public school. And so my brothers and sisters kind of dabbled in the arts, and we would all go to see the shows. And my one brother, he was pretty good, and especially singer wise. And I thought, man, I think I could do that. I could do that. And so, when I went into high school, I just, hey, there's something to do. And
so now you've talked this through. So your childhood, you're basically, it sounds like your whole family were entertainers at some point in time.
They all dabbled.
Right. And then you decided to take this big.
My one brother, he continued on and did quite a bit of Broadway. I went a different direction.
Right, but you decided that if you were going to get into this, even though you loved the theater, because I think most of us who are actors, that's how we all start, is our love for the theater, the love for musical theater. I know that's how I started. But then when you moved to LA, you decided that you wanted to crack the code to film.
Yeah. And what, unfortunately, when you don't know what the hell you're doing and, there, and it's new to you, and you're 19 years old, that's why I showed the picture. I'm going, what's the deal with glasses on my head and a painted in mustache? I didn't know that it was like, just be you, just try and be you. Unfortunately, I never knew who I was. That's why I hid behind the mask that was the stage. So I wanted to tear that off and get into film, but didn't have a clue. Even though I started kind of getting into little things here and there and doing like little bits on soap operas and stuff, I was getting, I was still doing theater. That's how I made my money, because I didn't have a regular job. I never worked at, other than outside acting. I'd never done anything because I couldn't. I didn't know what I was doing. So I would go into auditions and I would hear that, yeah, you're really good, but you need to tone that down. We're right here. We're right here, man. And I didn't get it. So I would continue to do theater all around the country. And even though I had joined SAG and AFTRA and Equity is the theater union, so it wasn't, this what isn't free stuff. You jump into that, I'm going to be professional now. And it's a whole different game. And you have to play by their rules. And so I was spinning my wheels in LA doing as much as I could, but it wasn't enough for me. So I would still go all around the country doing theater just to pay rent. And then I ended up deciding, after 6 years of living in LA and kind of spinning my wheels, I ended up moving to, of all places, Dallas. And I ended up doing plays and musicals there and industrials. And I ended up hearing about this film called Silverado that you had mentioned earlier on. And this is like way before self-tapes kind of a thing and Zooms. So they did put you on tape. It was probably Betamax or VHS. And you sent that in. And I heard about them having a call back in Albuquerque, actually in Santa Fe. And so I decided, you know what, this is an opportunity, because they didn't say who was in the movie. They didn't say what roles. They just said, we're looking for people who can play cowboys and farmers and can ride horses, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up taking it upon myself to fly into Albuquerque. They did give us a van or something to come down to Santa Fe, and I auditioned in front of Lawrence Kasdan, his brother, Wally Nacita, which is actually a female casting person. Oddly enough, there's a lot of female casting people, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah. Auditioned, and I ended up getting to play. I played the role of Roseanne Arquette's husband, and I didn't know who that was. I mean, I knew who she was, but I didn't know who else was in the movie.
Right.
Glenn and Kevin Costner and Brian Dennehy and Kevin Kline and Danny Glover, and it's like, oh my! And it was an eye opener. Believe me, I mean, it's like.
But they cast you, so that was great.
I got 13 weeks on a.
I know that. See, I think that sometimes, like, I was actually in the room with a director who does tons and tons of movies, but that's what he said, is sometimes he doesn't the trained actor is great, but sometimes if somebody just has a quality or there's something about them that makes you feel comfortable, sometimes he'd rather cast that person because he feels like they can do more of what he needs them to do, because sometimes actors do get in their head a lot. And I feel like you were in that space. Like they liked your look. They thought you were a good actor, that Silverado's a little over the top. And so you kind of fit. You just fit for them.
Well, it's just funny that you end up moving out of California and you end up getting in. And so I try and be different people. I don't know how well this is being seen, but these are some of the.
We can actually put your pictures on a link in the link below too. So if people want to go ahead and check out Rusty, we're going to have all his description and the description below so that you can find him. And then I'll make sure I put his IMDB so they can check out anything you want to send me pictures. I can go ahead and put those on there for you. Not a problem.
Cool. Well, I ended up getting this film and I decided, and I was still doing, plays and musicals and stuff there just to make some money. But then I got this film and I decided, what am I going to do? I mean, it's coming out soon. Where do I go? My brother had moved to New York and he started doing Broadway. His first Broadway show was Sunday in the Park with George, with Bernadette Peters and Mandy Patinkin. He said, you should move to New York. And I'm thinking, wow, this is, I mean, I don't know. New York it's like, that's a pretty big, it's a risk, but it's one I think every actor needs to take. It's either LA or New York, or, I mean, I guess Chicago and other places now, but back in my day,
Atlanta's the big one.
It was one or the other. Yeah, there was no Atlanta. There was no, that just didn't happen. It was one or the other, depending on what you want to do. So
I know everything was LA based. And I think the thing that's happened now is that it's so expensive to shoot in LA and so expensive to shoot in New York that, and then, as a filmmaker, it's all about the tax incentive. So, and even the big studios, they want to take advantage of those tax incentives because sometimes you can't get a tax incentive unless your budget's $5 million or more, depending on the state. So I think Atlanta's blown up because they have a much smaller based one.
I ended up moving there, and he introduced me to his manager, and she said that you have a really interesting look for commercials. She goes, "Have you ever done any of that?" I said, "Even though most actors will lie and say yes, I have. I prefer to tell the truth, and which a lot of people don't like. But the fact that I ended up interviewing with a dozen different agents in town." And since I wasn't your typical New Yorker, how you doing? It's like, hey, and and I was the blonde, blue-eyed kid. I got more work in New York than I did in LA because I was different. And when I started going out for these commercials, I started I'd go on 2 and 3 auditions a day sometimes. I was lucky to get that a month in LA. And so I started booking, and I was with J. Michael Bloom, one of the biggest agencies in the world, for many, many years. And I would easily 30, 40 national network spots, one of which was for Wendy's, a recurring character with Dave Thomas. And so I started getting a lot of camera time because of these commercials and auditioning and learning better techniques. It's like, oh, that's what you wanted, and here's the camera, and this is and it was just a matter of getting, I don't want to say more relaxed, but just technique, and a lot of people don't have it. So I started booking like crazy, and lived in New York for several years, year round.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you've ever lived there, but living in New York year round ain't easy.
So I wanted to ask you about if you had a tip for an actor about technique, because technique is something that there are so many different methods, but I think the thing about technique is that you have to settle into the one that works for you. And then you have to also be very comfortable in who you are, because sometimes you can have great technique, but then you get yourself in a situation maybe in a big set or an environment that you're not used to. And sometimes your emotional side will take over that technique upon occasion when you're just starting out. So what kind of tip would you give an actor for that?
Well, first of all, take from somebody who actually works in the industry, and not that some of the greatest teachers and techniques and methods aren't useful, but Lee Strasberg and Uta Hagen and Sandy Meisner, they really weren't actors. They didn't do that really for a living. And since they've been dead for many, many, many years, and usually that style is better for stage for me. And I mean, all of these books and stuff behind me are plays, and this is what you do with an actor. You start reading, you start understanding things and taking classes from different people and learning, and you decide what works for you.
Well, and I feel like too, a lot of those.
Wait a second. If somebody's telling you what to do, then they're just, and nothing is wrong with being told what to do, but you don't get that opportunity at an audition. You come in, you have the sides, and you have to break down that script and that character of all of maybe a couple of words, and you got one time to do it. Here we go, and go ahead, say your line.
I think too, the thing about having those I call them tools, like the different methods, having the tools in your toolbox is that when you go to class and when you take those, you're just learning how to relax a little more and on camera. I think the advantages of classes that I've been taking, because I did not want to take classes online, but I ended up doing it because a lot of the teachers are working actors and they use these methods basically to relax and to teach you to connect with the other actor on a very organic way. Now you can throw all that away once you're on set and once you're done breaking down the script, but I think it's just people to people. If your body's comfortable constantly performing and constantly, then it just comes natural. And I think that's the importance about being in class is you want to make sure you have that.
Being in class is where you may want to make your mistakes and try new things. And if you have characters, I'm the one who likes to go outside the box and not play it safe and just me, even though there are people that make a really good living being themselves, and you always know what that actor is capable of. But it's the Daniel Day-Lewis's and the Kate Blanchett's, or pick any actor who it's like, oh my God, that was so and so. That was Philip Seymour Hoffman. Those are the kind of actors that I looked up to. Not that I didn't look up to the John Waynes and Cagneys and things along those lines, but you always knew who they were going to play for the most part.
Right.
So when I ended up finally figuring out what I was doing via commercials, and because they're like kind of little movies, I learned a lot more about this side of the camera. So I would go, oh, that's all right. I got it. Don't worry about it. So I ended up moving back to LA and started getting more work. And then in the meantime, my folks had moved to Las Vegas. So I would come to Vegas every once in a while. And I started doing well in commercials in LA again. And I probably did a dozen spots for Wendy's alone. But it was one of those, I wanted to do more film and TV. And you only have a certain amount of time, look-wise, there's a certain window for some actors. And unfortunately, I wasted a lot of time thinking I knew what I was doing and didn't. And until I learned what to do and what not to do and make choices, because you have to know where to take those risks. And because a casting director, they're not going to tell you what to do. You show them, and that's it. And that's what you get. And you're up against.
Well, you're the casting director. Is your job as the actor is to make that casting director your fan base. Because if they're your fan base, they always recommend you. Because if you've been in the room with them and they know you can do the job, your first point of contact is to make sure that your casting director is your fan. it doesn't matter whether or not you get booked that time.
Yep.
It just,
I ended up going in for the same casting person many, many, many times. And because they go, oh, he'd be perfect for such and such. And then after a while, I ended up deciding to move away, and I ended up coming to Vegas. And there weren't a lot of, well, there were a few coaches and stuff in town that, in my opinion, didn't know what they were doing, but it was what it was. It was a small town. And so I started, I got here, I believe in 93, the first time. And I ended up doing, I don't know if you remember the old Treasure Island when they had the pirate show out front.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I created all of the voices in that show.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I'm lying. I didn't do all of them. I did all but one. I let some guy named Steve Wynn do the British captain, and I did the rest. And
some guy you guys will never hear of in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
He just has an entire casino in his name. But go ahead.
I ended up doing that for a little while, and then realized that there was some work in town, and like Crime Story. Now, again, this is back in, maybe before you were here. But
no, I've actually been here since 94, but I was not acting.
Okay.
My daughter was acting, but I was working. But
right.
I
there
did
were several television shows that were here that I was fortunate enough to be in. But the next thing that I did, I ended up getting cast in Guys and Dolls at the old Desert Inn, which also is a connection to Steve Wynn, because now it's the Wynn. But and I did that with Jack Jones, Maureen McGovern, and Frank Gorshin. And we did that there for 3 months, and then we took it to Atlantic City. And since I was so close to New York, I went back to New York for a little bit, booked a couple of other spots, came back to Vegas again about the mid 90s, and started looking around for, I know that there was movies that were made here before, but who's casting them and who's involved? So I started to stretch out and try and find agents and casting directors, of which there really weren't any in town. And at that time, the actual casting director and/or directors used to come into town and audition people. And the agents in town, unfortunately, they didn't really know their talent, because most of their money isn't going to be made off actors. I mean, it's off conventions and models and things like that. And so I ended up realizing that they would just basically push the send everybody button. And when these casting people would come in, and they'd be seeing people that weren't actors and didn't even have a resume. And I walk in and have my proverbial shit together. They were like, where are you guys? Where are you people? I went, I don't know. I don't know this town. I don't know where these people are coming from.
You know what's so funny about that is, like, I talk to people all the time. I'm an affiliate marketer for Wendy, Alane, Wright. She's a big talent manager in LA, or was, and now she teaches this program about how to get your shit together. And people don't get it. Like, I know they're taking classes. I'm not really sure, but I feel like the problem with the Vegas thing is that everybody's such a hobbyist. And it's not a hobby, it's an actual job.
Nothing is wrong with that. But if you want to go to the next level, then you better know what you're doing, because
absolutely.
Here's the problem. When these people would come in and they would see 10, 15, 20 people that didn't know how to slate, what are sides? Camera right and camera left, and hitting marks and staying, staying in your key. People are clueless. So I started, that's when I decided, you know what, I'm losing work, because these casting people aren't coming in and trying to sift through so much crap to find one person for a part. And so I was fortunate enough to book pretty much every single thing that I went out for when it came to this town. Like I was saying, there were, The Strip was a television series. McShane, many other shows. Hearts Are Wild. I'm having to look at my own resume.
Right.
But I mean, there were major films that came in, and I was able to get involved with it, but I wanted other actors, here in town to get better. So I ended up starting a workshop. for like 20 years and started casting myself, local productions. And after a while, the casting people wouldn't come in anymore. And so they started using kind of background casting directors who they basically are, we just need bodies. We don't care if you can act.
Yeah.
We just need bodies. And in my opinion, when I would sit in or do casting calls of my own, I would try and see new people. But when I would, for example, when I cast a film with Dakota Fanning, Phantom, Vena and the Phantoms or whatever. I saw quite a few people here in town, and it was just too bad. So many clueless people. It's gotten a lot better since then because there are a few acting coaches that kind of come and go here in town that aren't horrible. But the fact of the matter is, there's so many opportunities here that to get better. That I would rather just see 10 people for a part than 100 to have to sift through. And
well, I think too, back to the business of acting, even like when you go on the websites now, all the casting websites, Casting Network, Actors Access, if you don't have a slate with your picture, if you don't even know that, if your resume is not set up correctly, right, they will pass. Like actually the internet has been problematic for people who are a little older because they have a hard time circumventing it. So I think they lose out on a lot of stuff, but I think what's really, really happening in the industry today is that you have to show yourself as a professional. And if you had a business, you would have to have marketing materials. You would have to have a website. You would have to have all these things set up, because if you don't, then people don't think you're a business. So like what you were saying, if you didn't have, you went in with your composite, you went in with your resume, you were prepared to go. And I think a lot of people just kind of show up and it's like, they don't get it, that they could be the best actor in the world, but if you don't have that stuff, they're not even gonna look twice at you. They're gonna just assume you suck. Right. And then you're not even given the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, once somebody walks in the door, if they know what they're doing. And since there still are films, that are shot here, unfortunately, there are very few that cast any principals. I mean, they'll bring them from LA, anywhere to do a day player spot here because they just got so sick and tired of seeing people that didn't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, there's more of them than there are good actors. Right.
But I'm just saying that's what I was speaking to, was like literally, if you have everything set up and you send them your link to all of your stuff and it's all set up correctly, they're not going to pass. They're going to give you a shot. You might suck, but they're going to give you a shot, because why would you put so much effort into your package if you're not putting that much effort into your craft?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I don't know how many people are doing that here, because they're not. I'm so fortunate to have be vested through SAG-AFTRA and Equity, so I'm collecting my pensions.
That's great.
I'm basically retired. I don't know of anyone in town that can say that. Not that I'm trying. It's a bragging issue. It's just like, no, that's what I did for a living.
Are you totally retired though? Like, are you completely retired from it, or are you?
Well, I actually from time to time get asked to do something, and I will depend. It really depends on the money. No, it depends on who it's with and the part. And I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, I've done that. I don't need to do the same thing that I've done before, so that can be a reason why. But I am supposed to be. I do The Godfather from time to time, and I've done Trump, and I'm going to Fort Worth next month to do The Godfather at some convention or whatever. So I get asked from time to time to do it, but and I'll do a play, or I'll direct. I've directed several shows in town as well.
So because we're getting short on time and we've been talking for a while, so what is the future for Rusty Meyers in the next 3 years? Like, do you plan on maybe directing and producing a play? Okay, stop. I'm just
Yes.
saying, like, I mean,
Yes.
the problem with being an actor is that you could say I'm retired, but the reality is that we love doing what we love doing so much that we can never retire. It's ingrained in our soul.
Okay, I'll tell you why I kind of decided to retire, because the work in the industry to me is finding the work. You get on set, you get on stage, you hear and rolling act. That's the payoff. Pay me to audition, to go through scripts, to go through stuff, to learn what the hell I'm doing, breaking down this character, and find out. This is all about the audition. Once you get on set, you're cast now. The rest is up to you. Hopefully you know what you're doing when you get there, because there are a lot of actors that are very good auditioners, but performers is like, they freeze. It's like, God, you were so good at
I'm
the
like that in
audition.
the job interview. I'm terrible at the interview. I'm great at the job.
Yeah, but that's where you get the work in the audition room. That's
right.
It's like that's. Like I said, I knew a lot of very good people that auditioned, especially stage actors can audition usually very well. But once they get on camera, oh shit, I got to do it again. I got to start in the middle.
I find that when I do a casting that I will pick out some actors and think, wow, they were so good. Like their self-tapes were so good. And then when they show up on camera, it's like, where did my guy go? Or where did that girl go? Because
what's even worse is they'll do something really great and then they'll get to set or whatever and they'll go, oh, I was thinking about, and it's like, no, we want what you did at the audition. And a lot of people, I don't remember what I did.
Right.
So I would always keep the tape somewhere nearby and I go, this is what you did. You remember now? Because sometimes the audition, you might not get on set or be cast for a month or two. And in this town, you don't know if that things are ever going to be shot. And I know that you have something coming up in a week or so.
Yeah, and I know
about getting your footage. And,
I think too is as far as like, because I know you always talk about like, why aren't they casting things SAG? And I know that's been a note that you've had. I think that you have to kind of look at like my film is my, I'm a non-union actor trying to become a union actor, but I can't do it till I do enough stuff and get that opportunity. So a lot of these people that are, pushing their low budget films or everything they are the non-union filmmaker trying to cross over.
Let me just stop you. There are a lot of contracts that you can use for low budget,
I know, and I did call, just so you know, I talked to the lady in LA, and of course, I had a small budget. I had $7,000. And so I literally called the LA office. I talked to Kim Renee. I went through the whole gamut and they said, yeah, I could do micro budget. Well, the problem with it is that my contract with the people that gave me the money was that they were going to sell the film on a micro budget. You can't sell the film. You can make the film, but you can't sell it. And that was a big problem. And then they told me with my little bit of money, I couldn't even afford the COVID tests. So wow. I think it's a little tougher now with the industry as far as like COVID, because, you have to, I did all the homework. I did you have to have a certified COVID person on and it's anywhere between $200 and $500 a day. And it's like, I got to feed these people. So I think that, when there is a lot of non-union filmmakers out there, because right now, they're just struggling to get to know their name, just like actors are struggling to get to know.
Well, there are companies here in town that, very cliquey, but that use the same people all the time. But there are companies that use some name actors, and not big name, but they use them, and that's the people who they pay. Everybody else, they have to buy their
I know roles. It's terrible. No,
and,
I know.
They ended up. Most of those actors are financial core. If people don't know what financial core is, look it up. You have the option to do both union and non-union without any hassles. But if somebody wants to join the union, great. Being a right to work state, you're probably going to lose out 80% of the possible work that you're going to get here. If something comes in town and it's union, you're allowed to do it if you're union. The thing is, if you're union and something non-union, you're not allowed to do it, even though people do.
I think
actually
they're
saw
trying
Eric
to.
Roberts on a local lawyer commercial just recently. Eric Roberts.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, I know.
But that's okay.
But I feel like
everybody needs work.
It's just the industry that we're in right now. It's like, you know, I hate to say that COVID really shut a lot of things down. It did a lot of damage, and I feel like that.
Well, that would have been the perfect time to start working on your craft.
Right.
All this downtime, that's when you should have started, working. Now, I don't know how people can do, well, you were even saying doing classes online. I taught a class online, and it was weird. You don't.
You know what? I thought it was going to be a lot weirder than it was. And of course, we were talking about.
Better.
Right. It has gotten a lot better. Literally, they have like little rooms that they can put you in to do one-on-one with your partner. Like they're called breakout rooms. I would recommend you just doing it for a month with another school just to see how they do it and not even let them know that you're an acting coach. Because I think it's interesting to watch how other people do it. So when you do it, you're like, oh, that's available to me. Because I think too, some of us who've been doing this a little bit longer, we don't know what's available to us. But no, it's not the same as being in person. But for the actor, for me personally, the big advantage is that I can put people on my resume that casting directors actually know. Yeah. And so, you have to look at the whole package too. I could go ahead and spend my money with a local guy who could be a decent coach. I don't know.
Well, nobody knows who that person is.
Exactly. And I think we're in the industry about, people want to work with people that they're comfortable with. And it's all about relationships.
I want to work with people at least as good as me, if not better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't want to have to lower my standards because they don't know what they're doing.
Well, and I think
why they were cast. I mean, I've been in shows where, I watch the film and it's like, oh boy, why did I do that? And people are like, oh, well, you were really good. I said, so I was better than shit. And it's crazy. You don't know why you do this, but you do for a reason. And
I think you just have to. I know classes set up for you to have your failures.
Wait a second. I stopped doing classes. I just do privates. And realistically, and I'll have you in for one free of charge, because it isn't brain surgery. And there are things that people go, oh my God, had I only known that, it would have been so much easier. It's pretty easy. And even though I'm retired, I like to still kind of dabble in it, and if possible. But at the same time, if something comes into town, great. And I know there's a film shooting here, Hollywood and Crime. I heard about it, and not with named people. Not an audition that I've heard of.
Right.
And
I do have to kind of wrap things up, but it's been really nice talking to you, Rusty. I've actually never really had a conversation with you, and I've known about you for years. But I feel like I was a real opportunity to get to know you, and I'm really glad that we did this. I would love to have you on the show again. But I think the one tip that I would give actors, if it was me, and it's just something that's I kind of had one of those light bulb moments, was I'll tell you the difference between stage acting and film acting. Film acting it's much more internal, but you need to make sure that everything in that moment is the most important moment of your life. Like you need to up your stakes. Like I've always kind of done it very casually, but I've been told lately, and of course now I'm watching all these actors on big time shows, and I'm like, every moment of their life is life or death. So I think that you need to play it real, but it has to be life or death.
Yeah, it's it could be, but like I said, it's all just being in the moment, and everybody will you'll figure it out. If you start working, if you start booking, then you're doing something right. If you're not booking, or you're not even being seen, not getting your foot in the door, there's something wrong, and you better ask your coach. And if your coach doesn't have the answer, then you better get another coach.
So if somebody wanted, we got 2 minutes. So if somebody wanted you to coach them, are you still doing that?
Yeah, I still coach
wait, I'm
several
gonna do,
people.
okay, so what I'm
You know,
going to do is
they
I'm going
have
to
an
go ahead and
audition coming up, and I'll help them out. Yeah.
okay, and then if you want to, I can put your email at the bottom of the page, and if they want to look for you, or when I post this. So, anyways, let me sign off, and then we can talk about this for a second. Okay.
Okay, great.
So this is Brenda Daly. This is Real Women, celebrating women in film. Today we celebrated Rusty Meyers. I was really nice talking to you. I love the fact that he's been watching the show. I feel like I just learned a lot more about you, and I feel like people need to really lean in and pay attention, because the people who were doing it before you are the people to watch. So make sure that you know, if you're interested in a private coaching to somebody who's not going to be easy on you, Rusty's probably your guy. So,
yeah.
So
if you don't want to hear the truth, don't come to me.
That's completely fair. So, yeah, everybody, this is Brenda Daly. This is Real Women, celebrating women in film. And today we celebrated Rusty Meyers. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Brenda. Appreciate it.
No problem.